Hi friend, thanks for hanging out with me today as I'm going to work on another page in my composition notebook art journal. So this is my second series, my second composition notebook art journal. In the first one, I pre-made all of the backgrounds at once and then used that as a jumping off point, which was a really fun project, but I decided to do this one a little bit differently because I wanted a little bit more flexibility. And after I'd had all that practice before, I just felt ready to kind of do the pages as I go. So for this page, I am starting with acrylic black matte paint and just covering the entire background. And I'm going to use metallic markers, I know. And so I like the matte finish, which I kind of realized after the fact, which when we get to the end of this video, you'll see that I kind of learned a lesson that I will be able to pass on to you about working with mattes and glossy finishes. But anyway, this is that was my Pinterest inspiration, and I'm going to try to replicate-ish the pattern of like the fish scale pattern. And I am not an expert. So if you like watching tutorials from people who really know what they're doing, you might want to go watch some of them, and then maybe if you feel like it, you can hang out with me, because I'm very much a learn as I go kind of person. And sometimes I have to this is a good page as an example, because I'm starting out thinking, okay, I'm just going to use this circle to help me create my pattern. And then I figure out really quickly that it's not working exactly the way that I wanted it to. And so I tried a few other techniques. In the end, I kind of find what works. So you can just watch as I am trying to figure it out. So I am using this half circle, and I'm realizing that second row that I started was just a little bit too shallow. So I knew that that was not going to give me quite the arch that I was looking for. So, I mean, it kind of worked. See, I did the ring so that I could have the smooth edge on the inside and outside. But as you can see right there, now when I move it over, the other one's too small. So I am going to make it a little bit bigger, and then I will just incorporate that weird line into the pattern later. So I just keep kind of going this way. And as you can tell really quickly, like, it's not a perfect pattern at all. But when I'm done with my page, you'll barely even notice. Like, did you see that circle right there is not even the same shape, but it'll work. And if you're a perfectionist, then you will probably be going nuts watching how I do my art journaling, because I usually am not perfect at all. Okay, so this is where I figure it out. Okay, so I used a solid circle. I put a dot right where I want to connect the lines. And oh my goodness, finally I have figured out a good method. So if you want to do a similar page pattern to the one that I'm doing, this is how you do it. See, I knew I would get to that, helpful advice part of the video. So just use the outside of the circle, and then where you know that you want your lines to intersect, you just put a little dot there, and then you use that as a guide. Okay, so you can kind of see, like, the top's a little sloppy, but the bottom is starting to look really nice. So I'm going to start with just making some marks and patterns in each of the I don't know, I'll call them fish scales, but I'm just going to start with my white Posca marker with that little section. I'm going to call them scales. I'm going to start with the scale that I already had a line on, and I'm just turning that into a pattern. So I've got lots of little lines, and then as I just choose which scales I want to use, I just make sure that I am distributing them around the page in kind of a triangular pattern. That's usually the way my eye likes it. It feels very balanced if the patterns that you make kind of create a triangular thing, like if you connected the dots between them. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I'm just going to continue to fill in my scales around the page, and then once I have enough black and white, I will probably get my metallics out and start new patterns with that to bring in some color and some shine, because I like sparkly things. Well, it's not really sparkly, it's shiny. I like shiny things. If you've watched my last few videos, you've seen that I have kind of figured out this technique of using parchment paper in a Sharpie just to test out the space where I want to write something, just to make sure whatever I want to write fits. And so instead of trying to like squeeze a quote into any of these spaces, I just thought I was going to use some words. And first the word kindness popped into my mind. And then I just thought, you know, kindness is one of the fruits of the Spirit. And so I started kind of meditating on that, and like started off with peace, and now I am switching to joy. And so if you're not a Bible reader, the fruit of the Spirit comes from Galatians 5, and it describes just like a tree naturally produces the fruit of whatever tree it is. If it's an apple tree, it makes apples. If it's a cherry tree, it makes cherries. So if you are a believer, a follower of Jesus, Yeshua, then your natural fruit should be these things. This is the things that naturally come out of you: peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, love. I'm not putting them in order, and I'm going off the top of my head. I will requote them at the end like a good little Christian that memorized my Bible verse. But each one of them is also kind of an indicator to me. Like if I have a lack of peace, that means that to me, that's an indicator that I am not really relying on the Holy Spirit. So what that means is just trusting Him essentially, and saying, okay, even kindness, even when, you know, somebody just rubs you the wrong way and you don't want to be kind, you know, it's like, as Christians, we understand that like we need God to help us with that. And so self-control being one of them as well is a really big one for me, because, up in the corner is faith. And it's actually faithfulness, but I couldn't fit all of it in there. So I just put faith. But what was I saying? Self-control was a big one for me, because I was raised with Christian parents, but I didn't really have a personal belief, conviction, a relationship with God until I was much, much older, actually in college. And one of the things that, even though that I called myself a Christian because I went to church and that's the way that I was raised, I didn't have any of God's power in my life. And I was actually quite a little party girl and did a lot of things that I regretted, basically. And it just didn't feel right. It wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't the kind of person I wanted to be, but I felt like I had no self-control. So long story short, when I did finally come to a place where I was like, you know what, God, I just trust you more than myself to guide me and be, my leader in life, basically, and surrendered that to Him, then I felt the power to have self-control, which to me was like this really affirming test that God's Spirit really did live in me. So anyway, I will leave it at that. So I love these little botanicals. You can never go wrong with botanicals. Yeah, I realize that not all of you are Christians or Bible believers here, and I hope that I never say things that just repel you or make you, I don't know, that put a bad taste in your mouth, because I know that a lot of Christianity or religion can do that to people, and I never want to misrepresent who God is, because he is a God of love. And so, yeah, all right. But I always told myself I wouldn't become a preachy channel because that's, this is about art, but a part of art is self-expression. And so I'm always going to be sharing a little bit of my faith here and there, because that's who I am. And yeah. But you know what? If you are not of the same faith and you still like the way I do art, then take the ideas and you make them what you want them to be, because that's the freedom we have. So I shouldn't point out all my flaws, but I realized right there I put two of the same patterns right next to each other. Did you catch that? Yeah. It's not a big deal. You can barely notice it, but I was just kind of filling in those bottom ones really quickly. And then after I did it, I was like, oh man. So I probably shouldn't have said anything, because now you can't unsee it. But okay, so I was done with my page. I went out and I thought, I'm going to put this glossy protective coat over the top, right? It'll look great. But what happened was it took away that pretty contrast between the matte finish of the black and white and the white and silver and color metallics popping off. Now, I still love the page, but I would, if I had to do it over, I would not put the glossy spray on top. I would leave that black matte paint at the back. So thank you for hanging out with me today, and I hope that you come back and hang out with me again, and that you have a blessed day.